Hello and welcome to the Berkcast, the How to Train a Dragon podcast. I'm your host HC, and with me are.
Rush 2112.
And Wolf.
And before we start, let's just get a few things out of the way. One, I'm recovering from a sickness, so if I'm sounding a bit tired or something, that's probably the reason. Second of all, no one spoil us. Life is Strange. Stranger Things season 2, because we are only 5 episodes in. And thing number 3, I promise, I won't be so negative throughout this episode. You understand why in a bit, but I promise I won't be this negative if you recall any of the other episodes, especially the Riders of Berk review, because today we're doing Mildew. Aren't you guys excited?
A good pick for our pre-Halloween show, since this will be the show we do before Halloween.
Hella ugly.
And very scary.
Mm-hmm.
And I think more fans hate him than they actually do enjoy him.
You know, people who've been with this show for a while will probably remember me not really liking this character. So the fact I brought up doing the episode about him now is probably scarier than everything else. But
Well timed.
Mm-hmm.
completely coincidental, but works regardless. So yeah, we're doing Mildew now before we start moving to the other show exclusive characters. And why not start with the first human villain Hiccup has ever faced? So, general thoughts, guys. What do you think of Mildew?
Wolf, you can go first.
Oh, I enjoy him personally. Like I've said in the past, I really enjoy his character. I think for Riders of Berk, he was the perfect first villain you could be introduced to. He's, yeah, in my opinion, like, again, I got the show first before I saw the movie. I think a lot of people, when it came to the show, they wanted something a little bit more similar to the movie, and they really wanted something to dive into when it came to seeing the dragons introduced to Berk and having people adjust to that and deal with that, right? And I think Mildew's a little bit of that, though I don't think he's exactly what they wanted when they saw the first movie going into the show. What they wanted to see was something probably a bit more darker, probably a bit more serious in tone. And you get Mildew, who's not necessarily that, but he is a part of that idea, since he's pretty much the character who is against the dragons being on Berk, against people riding dragons on Berk, just against all of the entire idea. And for me, like, I really enjoy that idea. I really enjoy the fact that they at least did something with that, because again, it goes back to my love of Riders of Berk, where Riders of Berk is all about introducing the dragons into the Vikings' lives and ways, into the Vikings' lives and culture, right? And kind of learning to better get along with them, better integrate them, and just better work with them, just all of that. And Mildew's like great antithesis to that. Mm-hmm. So I enjoy his character. Maybe one of the only, if not the only, but I do enjoy his character.
Mm-hmm. Rush, want to go next?
Sure. So my take on Mildew has been kind of ruined by a lot of fanfics who write him to be a lot more annoying and evil. So
I wonder why.
I've never read a fanfic with him in it.
I will send you one right now that's ongoing, and oh boy, he pisses me
off. Let's just say someone sent me one, and I regret even opening it, because it's probably what you think it is, and I won't go into further details.
Anyway, but yeah, just going back to what he's been in. I'll break it down into two categories, because Riders of Berk, he at that point, he just seems like a chief dissenter to the whole dragons on the island idea. And sure, he does a little bit backhanded ways of trying to get rid of the dragons, which that's the true way, and he really never gets caught, quote unquote, with enough proof to actually do something about it. But until he leaves on his own accord, and at that point, he becomes more than just a descender trying to make the dragons leave, because it's something that you could say, the blue oleander wasn't something to kill all the dragons, because they would have found out eventually. It was probably just trying to make them leave or something like that. Or you could argue the other way. But it seems like he just wanted them to leave and things to go back to the old ways. But then, once he leaves and sides with Alvin, then you see that he's really just trying to get rid of not just the dragons, but anybody who loves dragons as well. And so, at that point, he becomes even a larger villain to me in the grand scheme of things, because, like I said before, he was just a cheap dissenter to me.
And that's what I love about Riders of Berk. Like, you see an actual character progression for Mildew, even whether you like him or not. Like, there's a genuine character progression for Mildew that you don't really get all that much of in this first season for the other villain, being mainly Alvin, I would say. There's a little bit of Dagger, but he's there for one episode. That's about it.
Yeah.
So you mostly see between Mildew and Alvin. And Alvin is a good villain, but there's not a lot they do with him in this season. But for Mildew, it's, you see a genuine character progression. And I've always said it as, at first, he doesn't like the dragons. He wants the dragons off of Berk and gone. He just doesn't want them there. And it slowly develops more and more over time as you see the season go on, into specifically targeting not just all dragons, but Toothless and Hiccup, because he wants to get back at them specifically, because they continually ruin his plans. Except for the one time where it was kind of Alvin's fault. And I love that because, you see that progression of he's getting more and more desperate, doing more and more underhanded things, and so, switching more and more towards specifically targeting Toothless, towards trying to actually kill the dragons, not just get them off of Berk like he was at first, to eventually saying, well, I'm just going to do the very thing I don't want to have Berk doing to help Alvin just outright destroy Berk.
And real quick, just that whole... I mean, if you think that he's always out to kill dragons, even though, as we say, he really does say the only dragons, or whatever, something about killing dragons. I can't remember the exact quote, because it's not my least or most favorite moment, so I didn't go back to look at it. But if you think about it, the very first thing he does to sabotage the dragons gets them just removed from the island. It doesn't get them killed again. It just gets them removed, and he's happy about that. So, but then later on, then he actually wants them, to. So yeah, if you didn't believe in that progression that Wolf and I have talked about, think about that.
Okay, let's do this.
Okay.
I will start this by saying that while I don't like the character, I like the concept of him. I like Mildew's concept. It's one of those things that the idea is good, but the execution wasn't quite there for me. Because, like we probably said it in the Riders of Berk episode we did, but what do you want to say? Okay, so you can't expect everyone in the village to all of a sudden be in love with dragons now that Hiccup defeated the Red Dance and showed that dragons are actually good creatures, yada, yada, yada. Yeah, I get it. Not everyone is going to be all about with this concept immediately, especially because Mildew seems to be the oldest person on Berk.
Besides Gothi.
Yeah, besides Gothi, yes. But when you think about it, besides Gotti, he seems to be one of the oldest persons on Berk. He seems to be older than Stoic, so he probably has a longer history with the dragons. He has more. He had more years of finding them off and stuff. So I can understand why he hates them, but at the same time, like, his plan to get rid of the dragons never changes. Like it's always something bad, which might as well have been a coincidence, happened because of the dragons. You see, I told you they were dangerous. Send them off. Send them off. Send them off. It's always the same freaking plan. If he caused those supposed coincidences to happen as a different plan, then you know what? Fine, I'll let him pass. But he just always seems to be the crybaby who says, nope, we need to get rid of them now because of the one thing we are still... Because you need to understand, even though if you're not on board with this, the Berkians are still learning how to live with the dragons. So you can't just criticize the whole idea just because you're still getting to know it. And he just what you said, Wolf, about character development. I seriously don't think that as a villain he develops because he always trying to stay the same damn shtick. And see, dude, you failed once. Why try it again?
See, I would disagree. I would say it's not exactly the same shtick. Like, you have, the first episode where all he does is kind of just rile people up. Like, that's... And agree.
After the dragons. Well, okay, so he riles them up after the dragons are doing what dragons do. And that's a legitimate thing there, right?
Yeah, it's again, at the beginning is... Like I said, at the beginning, it's fine. But when...
But that's not a coincidence. Like you said.
Yeah, but the 10th time it happens, where like when lightning strikes, for example.
That's like the only time it's a coincidence, though, from what I've thought.
Yeah, but still, it's like, dude, you've been proven time and again that you are wrong about this. Change tactic, retreat. Think about this.
It's different things every time.
Well, I mean, I get where he's coming from. Like, Mildew always ends up kind of trying to rile the village up, and it's a very similar plan. But I would say he goes about doing it very differently.
Yes,
again, like the first time, again, he does genuinely go out to rile the rest of the village up after the dragons overreact, after the dragons are doing what dragons would do. And the reason I say Mildew has character development, because like you see that first episode where Mildew tries to kind of hurt, ruin Hiccup's plans and hurt Hiccup. Well, not Hiccup specifically, but just tries to get rid of the dragons because they're, acting out or just doing what dragons would do, but being harmful to the rest of the village. So you see that plan fail. Immediately in the second episode, you only see Mildew once. And that's basically all he does is one thing. And this is where I would say he starts to develop that character where... Yeah.
But here's the thing. I didn't say I didn't say he doesn't have a development as a character. I said as a villain. As a villain, his plans are very one note. He doesn't try and change the strategy. That's what I meant.
Using the Zippleback footprints, them blowing up the... That's not pretty one note. That's pretty complicated if you ask me.
Yeah, well, again, I'm going by memory here. I haven't really had the time to rewatch Riders before this, but as far as I remember...
That's in Dragons We Trust and Alvin and the Outcasts.
Mm-hmm. Which is the fourth and fifth episode.
Yeah, you know what? That was a good one. But what does he do once that fails? He goes back to the usual thing.
No, actually, he plants the blue oleander and tries to kill the dragons that way, or make them sick.
And when that fails,
he goes to, if I'm not mistaken, When Lightning Strikes, which is
returning to the exact same shtick.
But it's not, though. I would disagree because he's riling up the crowd, but he's riling them up based on their beliefs.
But that's exactly what he's been doing for all the previous attempts. So
but he does point
this
towards
an attempt.
gods.
This is something that he doesn't even. This is the one coincidence that he takes advantage of.
Yeah, I would agree. Like, that's him taking advantage. Like, everyone believes that the gods are mad at them, right? Like, again, you have to remember, these are Vikings. They do believe in their own gods, and Thor is one of those gods, the god of lightning. And so they think he is mad at them because they're getting struck by all these lightning. And so Mildew uses that to get rid of Toothless. Is it the same kind of idea as riling up? Is it basically the same kind of idea of riling up the crowd? Absolutely. I agree with you. It is. But I feel that it's different enough that it's not quite the same thing. And again, it's not focused on all of the dragons. It's focused on one specific dragon. And that's where I say his development as a character and as a villain comes in, is because as a villain, he goes from his plan being centered around just getting all of the dragons off Berk to specifically being centered around Toothless and Hiccup and getting back at them.
Okay, so this is, I see your points. They are valid points, but I just don't agree. Sorry.
That's fine.
I reject your
That's
reality and
completely
insert my
understandable.
own.
Anyway, so let's move on to the favorite and least favorite moments.
Or as HE, least favorite moments.
Everything.
Entire
But, okay.
existence of Mildew.
Okay, let's say it like this. For a favorite, I will say that it is interesting that
hold
he
up.
is. Okay.
I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt your favorite moment. We can't talk about Mildew.
You just for clarification, I'm about to compliment Mildew, and Wolf stops me.
Well, we can't talk about Mildew without talking about his right-hand sheep, Fungus.
Oh, God.
Or possibly not the right-hand sheep, the actual mastermind behind Mildew. And all of the terrible things that happened to Berk.
If Johan ended up being a villain and a spy for Krogan and Vigo and stuff, I would not be surprised if this will be the big twist.
Report to Fungus.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
you know of the Emperor from Star Wars. Fungus is Darth Fungus. He is the Emperor.
You know what?
I don't know, it's like...
I have a better idea. That sheep is Drago in disguise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, no,
I like the Darth Fungus idea. Even the Fungus is behind Drago as well.
The Krogan, Krogan, Vigo, and
No.
Johan walk into a room. Vigo hasn't been told. He's just been told, like, they've been listening to Fungus. So he finally meets him. It's like, I'm sorry, where is Fungus? It's like, it's the sheep. It's like, we've been listening to a sheep here.
He's very powerful. Very evil.
Yeah, you know what? I could totally see. You know what? If Fungus is behind all of this and Vigo finds out, he will probably throw himself off the volcano again, and this time aim for the lava.
But now you can move on. We've talked about Darth Fungus.
Yeah, Darth Fungus.
Yeah, Fungus.
More
Fungus
Star
among us.
Wars references for General Hoff to say it's a trap.
Absolutely.
You know what? That will probably be the greatest plot twist ever. If the main villain of How to Train Dragon 3 will be Fungus, the sheep.
I'm telling you. Planned it all from the very beginning.
Fungus
is a sheep. Dragons always attack the sheep. He wants revenge from the very beginning.
And who knows? Maybe he also wants revenge for being the black sheep in the dragon races.
He's voiced by Ron Perlman.
Absolutely.
Well, he also had a cameo in Penguins of Madagascar, so maybe.
I'm just tired of sheep being eaten by dragons.
Well, so
favorite moments.
My favorite Mildew moment. I will give him this. As far as I question his villainous plans every once in a while, he is technically the first villain to quote-unquote beat Hiccup. And while it was winning in a battle, not a war, it is a first, so you know what? Good on him for this.
Yeah, he was the first villain to get exactly what he wanted, the dragons off of Berk.
Mm-hmm.
Then our next new villain came in and completely ruined that for him.
Yes.
Thanks, Alvin.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, if we are going on crossovers here, as soon as that happens, Mildew should have yelled, Alvin!
Oh, dear. Could you imagine Alvin the Outcast with Alvin the Chipmunk's voice?
You know what? Yeah, I would love to hear. Dragon Conqueror. I would love to hear that Mark Hamill being chipmunked. Yeah, that would be amazing.
Yeah. There's a reason we don't call him Alvin the Fearful. We just call him the Treacherous.
Anyway, so his favorite moments. I don't want to say the character itself because that will be unprofessional.
What?
But you know what? I'll say this. I'll say this. After Defenders, he sort of disappears. And you can argue that mid-Defenders of Berk, he starts to disappear. And I know I'm not alone on the I don't really like Mildew boat, but if people don't like your character, then you can just simply write it off. You could make him better. You could improve him. Don't ignore the problem. So where the hell is he?
You stole my least favorite moment, but I was going to talk about it in a little bit of a different way. But anyways,
so do this.
All right.
Well,
you're up next then, Wolf.
all right. Going off of HC's least favorite moment, that would be my least favorite moment as well. But I dislike it because basically, I think that is them writing him off. They just decide, well, we don't like. Here's the thing, right? Like, they end Riders of Berk in a way that kind of gives you this idea that they're going to use Mildew's knowledge of Berk to attack Berk, right? They never do. They do that once with the Whispering Death Eggs, like Mildew says. Mildew gives the idea to plant the Whispering Death Eggs where they do. They do that once. We see a little bit of that later on, but that's it.
They use the tunnels to capture Meatloaf.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. And after that, Mildew pretty much disappears other than getting struck by squirrel lightning, and you get to see and have that be an enjoyable, funny moment. Which it was, but like they basically never used Mildew for what they could have used him for, which was using his knowledge of Berk to attack Berk with. Like pretty much, as HC said, got rid of him. He disappeared. In my opinion, they just wrote him off.
It's hard to I find it hard to agree with that in terms. I mean, using the knowledge, yes, they probably didn't use what they could have done. But the thing is, it feels like in Defenders of Berk, he's I'm gonna say technically not written off as HC's getting abducted or something. I don't know. But he's not getting written off. I feel like he has plenty of screen time, and even though single lines a lot of the time, but like, I mean, I feel like the reason why you feel that way, or it could appear that way, is because this is when Dagger and Alvin start to work together in Defenders of Berk. So it seems like a lesser villain like Mildew, because Mildew clearly went to Alvin to work for him. So it's like,
yeah, but then again,
under him.
At the ending of Defenders, Alvin becomes an ally to Berk again.
Yeah.
So what, did Mildew come back to Berk? Did he stay with them?
Well, I mean, at that point, that's out of their hands. It's just the end of this. They didn't know they were going to have another one. So
I think Mildew's only in. I don't think Mildew's in that many episodes of Defenders of Berk.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said. He disappears
2
halfway through
episodes
the
at
season.
most. He's not even in he's barely in the first episode, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even think he is in the first episode.
He is
He's
in the first one. He and the other outcasts are actually planting the
Yes, you are right. We see him.
Whispering
so
Death.
he's there. Then we have not the Night in the Fury. It's whenever they go to Night Fury Island, Isle of Night. He's in that one. He's in the episode where they still meet Lug. Hey, that was a good plan for Mildew, by the way.
Yeah, but that's Defenders, not Riders.
That's Riders, not Defenders. You mean? What about when it's revealed that Mildew's on the island? That's which one is that? Oh, that's the Zippleback experience, or no, not Zippleback experience. That's when that's when they find out that Dagger's working with them, the Skrill.
Yes, yes, to get the Skrill, yeah, because Alvin captures it and they find out.
Mildew's
that's when Tough Nut pretends to be a tree.
Yeah.
I think that's the last time we saw him.
Yeah.
But you see him, I think, at the very end of Defenders of Berk, where
then you see
he's
him,
like
he's towards the end of the Defenders. Then
Yeah.
he's in the last couple of episodes. I know that much. I guess that's where I got most of my reference points from.
But, like another thing though to think about, like his kind of just the way they use his character in Defenders of Berk, the way they end Riders of Berk, it makes you feel that Hiccup wants to go. Well, not just that. It makes you feel like Hiccup wants to go out of his way to rescue Mildew. Like this character who's been against Hiccup this entire time is possibly redeemed in Hiccup's eyes. So now Hiccup wants to go back and save him to try and help him, right? That comes nothing of that, and they make you feel like, oh well, everyone already knows Mildew betrayed them, so who cares about Mildew, right? Like, meh. Like, why would you end Riders of Berk in a way that makes us feel like Hiccup wants to go out of his way to rescue this character, but then, meh,
Yeah,
we get kind of an offhanded mention of it, and that's it.
I guess.
It just,
You know that I
It doesn't
Now that
feel
you
as
bring
good.
that point up,
He's
at first it was basically just like, oh, he feels like he's getting written off. He was. Now you get to the bigger point. That makes sense. I mean, I agree with the first point as well. How he could have been used. It seems like he would have been used for more with the knowledge of Berk and dragons. Although I mean, his dragon knowledge only went to as far as the taming the Whispering Death, and that feels like that's a legitimate as far as he knew about the Book of Dragon or about dragon training. But knowledge of Berk definitely could have helped more. I mean, I agree with that.
Again, it's kind of it's a little bit more of a minor nitpick, and I get like, I guess they saw, you know, I guess the writers and the creators behind the show saw a lot of people just dislike Mildew, so they decided, well, we might as well just not bother. And having 3 villains, like, you know, how do you
that was the other
write
thing.
all?
Like how I said,
How do you deal with all that? You know, I understand it. I don't agree with it, but I do understand it.
yeah. Well, for a poorly funded Cartoon Network TV show,
They still did, you know, well enough. Like, it still was fine. Like, I have no major complaints.
like, you know, now with the Netflix series and having 3 villains, they'll probably be able to do that much better.
We hope.
Yeah.
That's a future topic in this episode, so let's talk about it then.
Anyway,
Well, Rush, your least favorite moment.
my least favorite moment. It's always bugged me how. Oops, sorry, I hit my mic. For those listening, because I do my Skype audio through webcam and my recording audio through a microphone. Anyway, it always bugged me how he got away with certain things. Like, that's just, it's like, come on, just please catch him already. So yeah, that was probably been my least favorite moment. Just when he's always snarky about it, but that makes him a good villain. Anyway, I'd have to say that's my least favorite moment. My favorite moment is very first episode. Basically the 2 shots that are at Mildew's expense when Mildew says, you know, these dragons are unfit to live among Vikings, and Gobber replies with, "Neither are you. Why do you think we built your shack on the other side of the island?" And then Mildew says, "Oh, have your laughs. There's blah blah blah. They're disturbing my sleep. Look at the bags under my eyes." And Gobber says, "Yeah, he's right. He's hideous." And those are hilarious to me. Great way to start out the first episode with jokes like that.
Yep. So anyway, did we all go over our favorite and least favorite moments? Just making
recall
sure.
Wolf calling out his favorite moment because he was on his least favorite moment spiel.
Ironically
I
enough.
My favorite moment of Mildew, I think, would have to be, probably the Blue Oleander episode. I would say the episode of hearing Mildew get hit by Squirrel Lightning and just seeing him basically have to blabber like Snotlot does is great. That would probably
Guys,
would definitely be up there a lot.
Excuse me for 1 second. I have to check something. You keep on the episode. I'll be right back.
All right. Time to ruin everything while he's gone. No, like I would definitely the Blue Oleander episode. I love the kind of switch in his character, and I love how he acts in that episode, and just, you know, the idea and just the different the different plan he comes up with there. I think that's very enjoyable, and I think that's definitely a good Mildew centric episode. Even the comeuppance he gets at the very end.
Okay, fair enough. So I guess since you're more outspoken, we'll continue on.
Okay, I'm back.
Oh, dang
I'm
it!
back.
So yeah, HC's great. But we'll get back to that later.
What did they say while I was gone? I wonder.
You'll
I need
have
to
to
listen
wait
to
for
the
episode to come out. No,
Damn, it's
we're
cool.
finishing up.
Okay.
We're moving on to the next one. So
Okay, so
again, I think Wolf should go first because he's been the most
wait,
outspoken about all of us.
let's inform the listeners what the category is first.
Well, yeah, we were
Before
going to get that. But you interrupted us by coming back.
Oh,
Always an inconvenience.
that's me. That's me. Okay, so Wolf, how well do you think Mildew holds up among the characters who were made for the show? Which means Dagger, Heather, Alvin, all of these.
Compared to a lot of it, like looking at Vigo, at Riker, at Krogan, at Johan, I don't necessarily have too much of an opinion on yet. I need to see more of what they do with him as a villain before I can really say where he kind of stands at. But so Johan not included, looking at Riker, at Vigo, at Alvin, at Dagger, at Heather, and then Mildew. As a character, I would put him so far. Even though I really enjoy Vigo as a villain, even though I really love and enjoy Heather's character and just really love and enjoy her character in general, like I would say Mildew's above a lot of them in terms of how they kind of dealt with his character and how they progressed it. Like he's one of the better ones they did. Not saying the others aren't good. I do enjoy all of the others, and I think all of the others did well. I just think Mildew he came off as that really enjoyable villain character that really they progressed him really well, and I liked that progression. And I think I guess the word I'm looking for is paralleled well with the kind of theme they were going for in Riders of Berk in general. You know, that being like adapting to the dragons and bringing them more into the Vikings' lives and culture. You know, Mildew kind of went with that theme very well, and his progression as a character and as a villain went with that theme very, very well as well. So, personally, I would slot him like top 2, 3 at best. At least.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I agree with you. Like his introduction is a little bit campy as it goes for, you know, because at this point, when we think about, you know, villain introductions, this, like I said before, this guy's just supposed to be seen as a chief dissenter, so he's made goofy, so, you know, he's not as believable, as opposed to Alvin or Vigo, who are more serious and deadly looking. So that's the whole thing behind it. And so, while they're known for great introductions, this one's, well, in its own right, I mean, it's great and funny. It's not as serious as you would think. But that sort of doesn't go.
It doesn't leave a
mark.
mark.
Exactly. It doesn't go along with the fact that it's exactly what you said. He is the exact opposite of bringing the dragons in, and he's exactly what you would believe. He is a believable villain in any sense of the word, because if you bring in something new, there's always going to be people who want that something out. So he's exactly what you would believe. I mean, and then in terms of villainy, his methods, despite what HC said, are quite inventive and interesting to me. So
that's because you are wrong.
And you are fired. Sean Connery Toothless.
I am your boss.
Sean Connery Toothless says you're fired.
Sean Connery Toothless is my trademark. So,
Anyways.
I'll need the paperwork, but... yeah, so... Although, despite him having good plans and stuff like that, he's just... To me, he's overshadowed more by the likes of... Alvin, Dagger, or Vigo. Obviously, I feel like Dagger has more. Jeez, it's hard to rank them. I'd have to put him. I was gonna say in the top 5, but there's really only 5 villains anyway to begin with most of the time. But
only 6. There's only about 6, 7 characters.
Yeah, right. So he's definitely not He's not number 1 or 2. I could see him being 3 or 4 for me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mm, let's let's ignore the fact that you pretty much skipped the category because I said among the characters created for the show and not the villains. That's the next category. But I do want to say something. I thought about this long and hard, and I figured something out. From the characters created for the show specifically, who debuted in Riders, and we have Dagger, Heather, Alvin, Savage. Yeah, pretty much those 4 showed up in Race to the Edge. Mildew didn't. Now, do you think, what I want to ask is, do you think it's really that a lot of people didn't like him, so they didn't really see a reason to bring him back, or do you think they just had no ideas for him anymore?
Well, we never heard. Where did you rank Mildew at HZ?
Yeah.
That's the villains category.
Yeah.
I'm saving it.
Oh, okay. Well, then we'll come back to that later. Personally, right? All right. Well, what are you asking us? Are you asking us like, would we like to see him appear in Race to the Edge as well?
No. Again, later category. No, I'm just asking this as like something I just thought up. It just hit me.
I would say part of that reason might be, yeah, people dislike him, but I would also say part of that reason is he served his purpose.
Yeah.
We don't need to see
So
him
with
anymore.
what you said, your last thing that you said, did they have no ideas for him? It's not that they might have not had ideas for him, but it's more like his story arc ended. There's really no reason to bring him back. And the other thing going along the lines of too, I mean, another theory, just a theory, is exactly
A film theory.
what Wolf and UHC said. They also noticed that he was getting written off, so they saw no need to bring him back. Like, oh, he got written off, so we shouldn't really bring him back for storytelling purposes. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why it could happen, but they all seem legitimately reasonable to me.
Like, simply put, right?
So...
Like, Riders of Berk is more or less Riders of Berk is about change, and Mildew is against that. He is, anti-change. He's the antithesis of that. And because of that, like, Riders of Berk and Mildew work really well together. Race to the Edge and Defenders of Berk, they're not necessarily about change. We've been through that change already. We don't need to continue going back through it again. Let's move on. So no real need to bring Mildew back up in any major way, I feel. Could it be done? Sure, but it's not necessary, so there's no need to.
Okay. Okay, so in terms of what do I think of him among characters introduced in the show, let's compare him to Riders specifically because that's where he started. You are going to be surprised, but I think he holds up better than one character. And that character is Savage. Now, you might ask yourself, how could this be? But HC hates Mildew. Well, here's the thing. When Savage showed up in Race...
more.
No. When Savage showed up in Race to the Edge Season 4, I was like, oh yeah, he existed. I completely forgot. Mildew, I remember. So I'll give him this. As much as I don't like the character, he is memorable. He left some sort of an impression of me. On me. So
yeah, you talk about getting written off. Talk about Savage barely showing up in like every 15th episode.
Yeah, but
he's not been written off though.
Yeah, but you know what? He showed up
he's
in the
close
sequel
to,
series.
I mean,
so.
Well, at this point, I think he's written off. At this point, I think he's written off because I think he's in jail on the Berserker Island. So I think we're done with Savage.
Look,
we?
You just can't get over your favorite OTP, all right? I know, it's hard.
No,
but...
I said he is gone. I'm okay with that.
A romance in jail is a romance regardless.
Hey, if
Mhm.
if he's in jail on Berserker Island, he'll still have time to get that boot.
Yes, absolutely.
Who
So
knows? Maybe they give him his food, his daily food in that boot. I don't know. It's getting weird. Anyway, back on topic. Let's go back to what did I want to say? Oh yeah. So in terms of the writers' characters, I'll say he's better than Savage for the fact that I actually remembered him, and Savage was kind of a thing. Easy. I won't say he's better than Alvin because if they're both villains, then Alvin is simply more threatening. And while Dagger is awesome and everything, he doesn't really show up in Riders. He only has one episode, so there's not really much to judge there. But you know what? He's still enjoyable in that one episode to me than Mildew in the entire season. So I guess that's kind of ranking him up. And Heather, now that's interesting. A character I hate against a character that's perfect for the time being. You know what? For the sake of not being predictable, I'll say that Mildew is better than season 1 Heather. Not Heather in general, just writers.
That means Mildew's your second favorite character from Riders of Berk.
new OTP.
Okay, let's also clarify this. From the characters created specifically for the show.
For
Because
Riders of Berk.
Yeah, because there's
Specifically for Riders of Berk.
In Riders of Berk specifically, because Heather did get a lot better as time went on, and there's no way I'm ranking Mildew as above Hiccup in any way. So, yeah.
So basically, what we've learned here, ladies and gentlemen, is HC actually does like Mildew.
I have appreciation for his concept, not the character itself, if that makes any sense.
It does.
And
I can understand.
And also, I just proven that he didn't really have much of a competition. So you won the silver medal when the rest of the competition was turtles. It's not really a competition.
Well, that's really sad if you get a silver medal against turtles. That means at least one was faster than you.
A win is a win in my book.
And the person who won is a
second
ninja turtle.
Second place is the best loser.
Best loser is still a winner somewhere.
No, you're still a loser.
Still a winner though. A losing winner, but a winner nonetheless.
We have very different ideas on competitiveness.
You know what? I think that after the Fish Legs episode, this is the episode where we go completely off topic of the character and come up with all sorts of random stuff.
Absolutely fine.
We've had worse with that. We've had worse. Trust me.
Anyway, you guys, just writers, not villains yet.
Right. Or just characters, not villains. I kind of auto-completed it in my head. That's why I did that, and I tied it into the next topic. But in terms of other characters, just created for there, I agree with you on Dagger, Alvin, and let's see, Heather and Savage are the only other two, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're just looking at Riders of Berk,
yeah, just at Riders of Berk. Well, even Defenders
Well,
of Berk. There's nobody new.
There's
in
also
Defenders,
Sven.
right?
There's Sven is in Riders of Berk, when I'm mistaken.
I talked about putting the other contestant, making the other contestants turtles. This is just putting a contestant that's a snail. Like, really? Sven, this is our competition.
He's still a character.
Yeah, but
A named character.
yeah. So for all intents and purposes, I will not be.
And
talking
Bucket,
about-
how could we forget Bucket?
And Mulch.
And Mulch.
I mean, come on.
And Mulch, yeah, we forgot Bucket and Mulch as well. They're actually characters that have lines and everything.
Yeah, they're good. Well, keeping in tandem with what HC did, so I don't know, so I don't have to think more.
Technically-
Who else?
Technically, Ghosty, since we get more character from her in the show than we do the movie.
She was in the movie, doesn't count.
Depends.
It's HC
No, it doesn't
script.
depend.
It's HC script.
Well,
yeah, he's also look at the question, by the way. We're created for the show. We
I could argue-
you know what?
clearly stick to script here. Well, I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyways.
Okay, got it. But
Anyway,
so you know
yes,
what?
I will do. Let's just keep it to the 5, or that HC went over. Okay, just for simplicity purposes, no more. I don't even know. No more that whatever just happened. But so yes, Alvin and Dagger. I mean, since they're both actual villains who are the lead villains in their own right, they clearly will overshadow Mildew, especially since Mildew works for Alvin. So there's really no competition in my opinion there, in terms of characters. But then when it comes to Heather and Savage, Savage, like we said, I mean, in the first season, looking at first season only, maybe Mildew is lesser because Savage actually has some decent, character in that. And Heather, since she was just a one-off episode, even though Dagger was a one-off as well, he made such an impression that you'd think, oh, okay, he's coming back or something like that. For Heather, they sent her off, and it's like, oh, we might never ever see her again, regardless of what happens. Think about Race to the Edge, the very first episode of the very first season. It's Dagger escaping. And then you get to the second to last episode, and third to last, because this is a two-parter. And there's Heather. So who comes in first? Dagger. But since Mildew didn't really return, but Savage also returned kind of before Heather as well. So just given all that, you don't really know if Heather's going to come back. Mildew's ahead of her as well, and then behind Savage. So of the characters we described, he's lower on the list for that.
Interesting. Okay, so I guess the next category is let's rank him among the villains.
Me and
all
Wolf already
franchise. So all franchise villains, which means Drago counts.
Oh, well, in that case, I shift him down to 5 or 6 then.
Okay, go over the order again, just to make sure we got it.
Go over what, the list of villains that I have?
Yes.
Okay, so Vigo is my end-all be-all number 1. Then from there, it's, I'd have to say, pre-good guy Dagger. Then, either I want to say Riker or Drago at the next 2 spots. That's 3 and 4, and then Mildew, right, 5th spot, and then Krogan. That's all of them, right? Yeah.
Well, Johan.
I haven't had enough to really decide. That's
I would
my
say the
basis
same
for why I haven't chosen. I mean, he could be my number 1 just for playing the long game for so well.
Yeah, but
We don't really know.
do you think we should include Johan? Because
no, we're only
all we know
season of him too, so it's like really. I mean, if we have to
so-
create an opinion on that,
Yeah, we let's keep Johan out of the loop for now until we actually see him do villainous stuff.
yeah. Okay. Anyway,
So Wolf.
For franchise villains, for me, I would say he's probably Mildew is probably. We have. So our villains. So the villains we're kind of going over are Drago, Riker, Vigo, Dagger, Alvin. I guess to some degree you could probably say Savage here and there, but we'll say Savage and Alvin are kind of together and to some degree. or which maybe not include Savage at all, but Mildew. So about 6,
And
maybe
Krogan.
7 characters. It's still about 7, maybe 8
Yeah.
characters as villains.
Mhm.
I would say Savage would be your lowest down. Like he's the lowest one, just because he's very much kind of side characterish, kind of side character villain. No one really majorly important, unless the show decides to pull another twist somehow. I would say after that, I would put Drago, just because there's more to him to see when it comes to the third movie, and I'm curious to what they do with that. So he could go up or down very quickly depending on how the third movie turns out. And regardless of what HC and Rush said, I'll definitely say Johan as well. Like there's a lot of places he could be at, so lists could definitely change in the future when we see the next season of Race to the Edge as well, because of what we might not see Johan do. But I will say Mildew has the weakest introduction out of all of the villains. Even Johan, like when we first are introduced to him as a villain, like he has a really good introduction. Like they really introduced the idea of him as a villain really well. I really enjoyed that scene where it's kind of revealed that he is a villain now. Vigo has a great introduction. Riker, a great introduction. Dagger, a great introduction. Alvin, the same way. Like all of the villains except for Mildew have really good introductions, I feel. Based on that, like Mildew's at the bottom. But based on how they did as a villain and kind of how that villain and their character progressed, so far, I would put Mildew probably number 1 spot, just because I think he's one of the few villains who actually accomplished one of his goals. He's one of the few villains who we've seen some major progression for, and a lot of character changes and a lot of changes in his character as well. The only other one who compares at the moment, I would say, would be Vigo.
He got a lot of what he wanted.
Mm-hmm. So it'll definitely be interesting to see. Like again, like I think this list could definitely change a lot, and you may see Mildew drop out of the top 1 spot for me. But I think as of right now, Mildew's a top 1 spot, just because of I feel like he's a very well-contained character that in Riders of Berk, like everything just kind of works with him really well, and that progression and development as a character and a villain, just all of it just kind of comes together really well and just parallels and goes with the kind of overall theme of Riders of Berk really well. And so comparing to Defenders of Berk and Race to the Edge. So for now, top 1, maybe top 2nd spot.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Before I rank my list, I just want to make something clear. Judging characters and as villains are sometimes 2 different categories. Mm-hmm. Which means just because I put Mildew above some characters as villains doesn't mean I think he's necessarily a better character.
Yeah.
Just clarifying this. Okay, so if you want to count Savage, then he's the low point of this list because he barely shows up, he barely does anything, really not such an impressive villain. Mm-hmm. Now, above it, I will put Dagger. Now, hear me out. We're ranking villains here, so for one, Dagger didn't really get what he wanted when he was a villain, and him turning into a good guy and now being a good guy kind of puts them down for me in terms of villains. You know what I mean?
Well, then why isn't Alvin at the bottom of the list as well? I mean, Dagger was a villain longer, just saying. I mean, I really don't agree with this whole ranking them based off of them getting what they want. I feel like it's based off their principles and their attempts. To me, just to get it out there on how I rank things.
You know something kind of embarrassing? I actually haven't thought about putting Alvin on the list, so now that you brought it up to me, thank you.
Oh, Mr. I'll get there. I'll get there. Oh, I haven't thought about putting Alvin on the list. Yeah, you know what? That's not very nice.
Okay, so allow me to amend my mistakes. After Savage, we have Alvin, just because, really, even though he turned the good guy, we really forgot about him until the last season, to be honest. So, yeah, it's like, I did my thing, I'm no longer that thing, bye, see you later, maybe, not really. After this, there's Dagger, I explained my reasons as to why. Well, I'll put about it. Let's see. Probably Riker, just because even though he's a fine villain as he is, he's at the end of the day, he's Vigo's second in command. And also, if Vigo can survive lava, but he can survive falling down the ocean, I'm sorry, you're going to have a few points taken off.
I'll give Riker props for this. So far, he's the only villain who's died a villain.
You either
He came
die
in
a
a
villain,
villain, he went out a villain.
you either die a villain or live long enough to see yourself become the hero.
Pretty much.
I know that's not
that's how DreamWorks does it, at least it seems.
Yeah.
That's how DreamWorks Dragons the series does it, anyways.
Well, hey, I mean,
What?
Hey
No,
man,
even,
you saw that
even,
movie called The Dark Knight? Yeah, let's do the episode. Okay.
No, even
Sure.
even the first movie does that. If you look at Stoic as a quote unquote villain,
yeah,
he turns good
I
guy.
remember that. We had that whole top conversation of Vikings are the real villains.
Absolutely.
I mean, at least
No,
Red Death died.
Tutus is the real villain. What are you talking about?
Oh god,
The best villain.
Let's not bring that up again. I only want
Yeah.
one rant per lifetime.
Anyway, after who did I put it? After Riker, I am debating. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Vigor's number one because out of all the villains, he's the one who got away the most with what he wanted. Like he had the most wins, and you know what? After Riker, I'll put Krogan just because I don't really know him yet, but from what I've seen, he's intimidating, and so yeah, let's go with
Do a
him.
character episode on
Yeah.
him because I have a few choice words about him. I'm not a fan.
Okay. Well, I'm not a fan of some things you say, so yay, we're even, dude.
Yeah, but your strong opinion, your opinion on the things that I don't like is just like, well, you're wrong.
Well, don't you think I'm wrong?
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I have actual reasoning to
You
back up
think
my
it.
statement. Well, not about
I have
Krogan.
reasonings
I mean,
too.
you could say you're right. Krogan is intimidating.
Moving on.
Just to
Krogan another
clarify,
day.
Krogan killed a person of his own because he wanted to go home. I mean,
Vigo had a person.
neither is Simo. Okay, I will put however, I will put Mildew below Alvin. And the reason I will put Mildew below Alvin is the following. Mildew didn't kill any of the main characters. Drago did. So, in terms of villainy, that gets you a few points up. The reason I put Mildew as high as a villain, though, is that he did get a win at one point. So you know what?
HC, you're kind of confusing me. You said you put him behind Alvin,
Yes.
but you put Alvin
That means
at the
he's
bottom of the list.
well, Savage bottom of the list. Mildew's
And then-
I
second
said,
bottom.
oh god, oh man, I said Alvin, so I meant Drago.
That's why
man.
you say I put him behind Alvin. Here's why. Drago kills. Like, wait a second. Back up.
I'm sorry, like I said, I'm recovering from sickness. I'm not myself.
No, that's fine.
But
at least I
Okay.
I was able to catch it. It's like, what?
yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, I'll put him below Drago. Sorry.
Right, and your explanation was right that Drago actually killed somebody, Mildew didn't, but he had wins. Okay, so now we're on the right track. Anything else? Sorry. Now that you're back on track.
Okay, I think then. So let's close this off with saying, what if Mildew will ever be in Race to the Edge? What do you want? What do you want to see from him? Can I take this one first? I have the perfect way to close off the Mildew saga.
Go for it.
Okay. So he will show up in a manner similar to Alvin. One day, the hunters will just send Hiccup a dragon mail and tell him, listen, we caught this guy who's apparently with you. And we want to negotiate. We want to bargain, if you will. So they come over. They want, in order to save Mildew, even though some of the riders are being pretty sarcastic about it because they hate him. And however, what Hiccup doesn't know is that the hunters are setting up a trap. And instead of giving Mildew alive, they are feeding him to a bunch of dragons. How is this the Mildew's happy ending? Well, while he reaches Valhalla, he meets the love of his life, the one guy we know Mildew will always love, with the exception of his sheep, of course. The trader with the Rapunzel beard. And then they live happily ever after in Valhalla. # love wins. Thank you and good night.
If you're not of this joke that just happened, Rush just quit and came back.
Yeah, I didn't say anything. I mean, I'm the one recording too, so I really just that's why you need to get your computer working again, HC, because then it has everybody's side for the effects, not just me hanging you up and then it just going silent as I don't say anything in my complete.
Man, that really made you angry for some reason.
No, it was just so ridiculous. It was one
of
those
things.
Are you a
homophobe, Rush?
It was one of those.
Are you?
Okay, let's not go there. That's a little too far.
I'm kidding.
Anyway,
moving on. I'll jump in here with saying, do I want to see Mildew in Race to the Edge? To be honest with you, no, I don't. As I said earlier, I think Mildew has served his purpose. I think he'd served that purpose well, and I think we don't really need to bring him back. And I would rather they didn't, because I don't personally feel there's any really good thing they can do with Mildew's character that would be majorly important or that we need to have solved or find out. Other than whether or not Fungus is the true ringleader behind all of the villains in this world.
But we really don't need Mildew for that.
No, we don't. We just need Fungus.
Mildew's just a puppet anyway.
Darth Fungus. # Darth Fungus. # bring him back. # best villain.
Fungus might control Mildew the entire time.
Absolutely. # Fungus Jedi.
The last Fungus.
Hashtag Jedi sheep.
Yeah.
How all these your Fungus?
These are not
I can keep going. There's plenty of hashtags.
Yes,
there are plenty of hashtags here, ladies and gentlemen.
I'll let you type them out all on Tumblr if you want, as I put my last opinion on there. Well, it's not really any different. I agree with Wolf in the no portion. Nothing really different, or nothing else that I agree with on the hashtags. Yeah, I don't really see him being useful, especially with one season left in Race to the Edge, unless like it's a weird cameo at the very last episode. Where it's like, where it's like they fly back over Berk and it's just Mildew saying it's like just dragons or something like that. I mean, there's really no reason, no plot that you can bring him in. Don't fight me. No, I'm just kidding.
If you want to do
don't fight me.
One last my cabbages yell, I'll accept that. I would accept one last my cabbages. Yeah. Yes, but Mildew does the same thing though.
Yeah. No, like that's
literally
for a cameo appear. That's like a little funny thing, but there's like no real.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
There's one season left, 13 episodes. I'm starting to make myself really sad here. Just give me a sec. No, but like I don't see him coming back to Race yet. Nor do I really want him to, because I kind of want them to focus on the task at hand, Trader Johann with a T instead of a D, and.
You know what? Here's the bigger twist. Trader Johann was Mildew the entire time.
Oh God.
Pulls off face mask. And I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids.
And your Night Fury too. Well,
Scooby-Dooby-Doo?
Toothless, where are you?
we've descended into the ninth realm of hell. But yeah, I don't really see him coming back. We can always hope that he'll never appear again.
Damn. And I thought I was going to be negative throughout this entire episode.
No, you're negative for 90% of it.
Legit, I can live with it. Anyway, anything else we want to say about Mildew? Other than I hate him.
There it is.
Hashtag Jedi sheep.
Quickly, close the episode.
Awesome.
So he'll keep
Okay,
going.
so this was all for this episode of Berkcast. We hope you enjoyed. If you want to tell us how you pledge your allegiance to the Jedi ship, you can do this on the Berk Fanvine forums. We're all there under the guidance of the Jedi ship. We're also on Berkcast. Berkcast is with capital B, capital Jedi ship. And we're also on Tumblr at Jedi Ship Team. So until next time, I was HC.
I approve of all these things, and I've been Wolf.
I want to kill myself, and I'm Rush.
And we'll see you all next time. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.